All right, everybody, back with another one. Today we're going to take a look at a couple different things. We're going to take a look at the Genius Act, which is the pro-stablecoin crypto act that Trump administration just passed, and how it's gonna affect the finance industry. We're going to take a look at the recently released, just today, Martin Luther King Jr. That have to do with the assassination and other things about that long-standing conspiracy. But first, before we get into that, we're going to take a look at something that is important to me and I think is important to a lot of Americans in the prison system in this country and how things are being done. Now, at this point, I think we can kind of agree both on the left and the right, maybe not the politicians, but the actual Americans, that the prison system is corrupted and it needs to be overhauled. It needs to be changed in the way that it is run because at this point, the prison system is semi a detainment center for people who commit crimes and semi a business in order to profit from incarcerating people. And it's gotten so bad over the last several decades that we're at a point where people are being wrongfully convicted. People are being incarcerated, you know, and I've talked about this in previous videos where against their constitutional rights, where their punishment is excessive compared to the crime. It doesn't fit the crime. And you have a constitutional right. You're protected where you're not supposed to be punished unfairly. You're not supposed to be punished in excess of what warrants the crime that you committed. And we've seen this time and time again where people have gone to, prison for 20 years for having a very small amount of drugs on them, or, many other different types of criminal, um, or many different types of other crimes, especially nonviolent crimes, which is the biggest thing in that most people should not be thrown in jail for a nonviolent crime because they're not a danger to society. They are a nuisance to society, but they're not a danger for the most part. Some people commit crimes that could definitely be considered dangerous without being violent, but the majority of them are not. And I think we've come to a point in this country where, pretty much every American, unless you're, very pro prison and pro, locking people up for life and throwing away the key, unless that's in your DNA where you want to see people thrown in jail. Most people, left, right, center, would probably agree that the, you know, prison system is corrupted and that the way that we punish people in this country is out of control. And it's also clear that the prison system is a business today, and it's not fulfilling what it was designed to do, which is to take people who are committing crimes and taking them out of society for a duration of time, whether that's short or long, but also rehabilitating them. Now, there's even this thing where people will come to the parole board when they get to a certain time in their prison sentence where they're up for parole, and they'll be typically asked if they feel that if going to prison has helped them rehabilitate, and they feel that they're ready to go back into society. Many times people get denied during that time. There's no rehabilitation done. The prison system is not working to rehabilitate anybody. And they're expected that the prisoners are supposed to just miraculously rehabilitate and then be ready to come out into society. When most of the time we see that it actually makes people worse. It actually makes people become lifelong criminals. You go into a prison and there's this dynamic where there's gangs, there's sides that you have to choose, groups that you have to become a part of in order to not get put in situations where you're a target for other prisoners to attack because you're backed by a handful of other people that protect you, and it creates this very tribal way of being that is we're beyond that as a society outside of the prison walls. So why would we not be beyond that inside the prison walls, especially if it's supposed to be her rehabilitation? And it forces people to do all kinds of things they have to do to survive in there. Not to mention, they're not really doing anything to stop the capabilities that these prisoners have from operating the same way they did outside of the prison walls as they do inside. So what I mean by that is if they want to get drugs, they can get drugs. If they want to get cigarettes or alcohol, they can get them. More so, they can actually distribute them. They can sell them to the other prisoners inside the walls. Well, how does that stuff get into the prison? I mean, we're able to stop that stuff from getting, through the airport with TSA, which is typically a private organization and not, through the government. And they do a better job at scanning everybody's luggage, scanning every individual that walks through, making sure they have nothing on them. You can't even get a bottle of water past them. But for some reason, we're able to get drugs, alcohol, and all different types of other things into the prisons, not to mention weapons for people to use to actually commit more crimes in there, and violent crimes at that. So it's clearly being allowed to happen. And then we also know, too, that there is so much talk about how the prison guards, the wardens sometimes, the politicians that help get the prisoners there, or the lawyers or people that are involved, are also corrupted and working in this network of crime that runs rampant in the prisons. That many of the people that are not prisoners, that are on the outside or on the inside, but they're just working there, are involved in these crimes, are involved in this corrupt system. So it's clearly designed as a business and a subculture within our culture, but outside of the dynamic of our regular society. And it operates just like a business. People get paid, there's kickbacks, there's all different types of networks that rely on that labor and just the type of stuff that goes on inside the prison walls. None of your politicians are really doing anything about it because it's out of sight, out of mind. It's something that goes on, in a part of society that the average person doesn't see unless you know somebody in prison and you go to visit them. And it's just swept under the rug. Those people especially too, they don't have a voice because they don't have access to, what's going on in there to the outside world unless their gatekeepers in there allow them to. But you've seen this time and time again where people were wrongfully convicted or punished to an extent that way exceeded their crime. And you've seen just recently Trump pardon many people in that instance. We've talked about this on the podcast in the past. People from the January 6th situation back in 2021, those people were, thrown in jail, many of them, indefinitely, and not given the proper, you know, rights that they have judicially in this country. They weren't given a fair trial. They weren't given the opportunity to, defend their innocence and so on. And Trump had pardoned all of those people because they had undergone, a corrupt system that incarcerated them well against what their, crime was, but also what the punishment should be specifically for that crime, having tried people in the past for the same thing. So also too, the way it works is a lot of times the courts will go by what is the general consensus for how the judges are, charging these people and convicting them for these crimes in the past. What's the history of these punishments and these, that the judges are basically giving out the sentences, and they will sort of piggyback off that. And if something is, well exceeds the norm, that is also considered unreasonable or unfair punishment. Cruel and unusual punishment is how it's actually put in the Constitution. But yeah, this happens a lot. And then even worse is what we're going to get into today. People that are wrongfully convicted and then spend many, many years in prison fighting to get their original case overturned so that they can be set free. And the courts fight to the death, basically, to keep those people from getting out of prison. And it's a system where they do everything they can to put pressure on them to either give up the fight or make it as hard as possible for them to get to the next steps that they need in order to get an appeal and things like that, to get the judge to look at it and overturn the case. Not to mention, we're living in a world today that's very different than it was in the past, where a lot of times we have forensic evidence and other, you know, newly discovered methods that we've been practicing for a very short period of time compared to history, where they automatically disprove a lot of the old methods, the old way that they've done things in the past. And in many cases, when you apply these new methods to a case that's old, the judges will not even hear it because they feel as though that case was already decided by another judge and they don't want to maybe step on their toes, or they don't want to overturn their case because then it makes that judge look bad. And this is another big thing in the judicial system that nobody really talks about is there's this weird ego game where judges would rather leave an innocent person in prison than admit that they were wrong by convicting an innocent person. And this is a real thing in the judicial system. And many judges do this. They don't want to hurt their reputation. In their mind, they have like a scorecard for all the convictions that they've gotten and all these quote unquote bad people that they put away. And they act as though they're doing a service for society. But when the truth comes to them, where it shows that they maybe convicted someone wrongfully, their ego won't allow them to admit that and say, well, at the time, this was the evidence that was presented to us, and this is what we were going by, this is what we knew. But now that we have new evidence, it does invalidate what the previous decision was. I'm going to help you overturn this and get this person out of prison. That would speak volumes for that judge, and it would restore faith in humanity's belief that the judicial system is actually fair and not corrupted, and that if they did get in trouble for a crime that they committed, you would believe as an American that if I'm innocent, I'm going to get off, and if I'm guilty, I'm going to go to jail because the judicial system is very fair and very accurate in the way that they do things. But the system's so corrupted, the average person who is an innocent person on a normal day is afraid of the government and the judicial system because they believe that these people will wrongfully convict them and make up all kinds of um, scenarios. Some people have been guilty of planting evidence just to convict somebody. There's a lot of corruption that is wrong with this whole system, and that includes law enforcement too, which is why I don't agree with many of the people who are against police officers and people in that industry in many different capacities. That includes ICE, who's going out and doing all this border stuff for Trump and illegal immigration, and you know, the corrections officers that work in the prisons, and your average police officer that works the streets. You know, many of these people are great people and they're honest people, and they took that job that's a low paying job that, yes, has good benefits and long term gain for, you know, retiring young and having a pension. But the amount of difficult things that you have to deal with along the way, it totally outweighs the benefits of it. So most of the people who take those jobs take them because they're honest, good, decent people that want to go out in the world and do, you know, a work of service where they are protecting and serving their community. That's noble. There's something beautiful about that, that humanity still has people in it that operate in that way. But there is definitely a group of people who get into law enforcement because they love power and seek power, but are not capable of getting to higher levels in the work world, you know, where maybe they're a politician or something like that and have a lot more power over many people. So they start small and they get into being a police officer or something like that to wield some level of power over people because that's what they seek. There are those cases of people in the law enforcement game as well. So, you know, every industry has corruption, every single industry. And, you know, no industry is perfect because people are not perfect, but there is a lot of corruption, and it's gotten better over the years, but it's also gotten worse in many areas because it sort of shifted from the lower levels and went up to the higher levels. So now the people at the top are the most corrupt, and the people at the bottom are the least corrupt. In the past, it used to be different, especially with, you know, police officers going back to like the 60s and 70s. They were extremely corrupt, and that was at the low level. In the 80s, especially in like New York, for example, thousands of police officers were arrested and charged with all kinds of crimes that was ironic because they were arresting people for those same crimes, and you thought they were the good guys, and many of them were in on it. But the system, the industry is corrupted and it needs to be reformed. And I know at one point in Trump's first administration in 2016, he was actually working on that to some extent. And he was even working with people like, I think, Kim Kardashian at one point, even brought this to his attention and worked to help get somebody who was wrongfully convicted freed or pardoned or something. I don't remember the whole situation, it was a long time ago. But there have been many people like that, and he's pardoned many people as well because there are people that he felt was either wrongfully convicted or charged to an extent that well outweighed the crime. The punishment didn't fit the crime. But it's not so much about Trump. It's more about this country. We as a country need to change the way we do prison. Now, if you're a criminal who is a bad person, a bad member of society, absolutely, that's what the prisons are there for. You should be arrested. You should be, given your fair shot to declare your innocence, which every American has the right to do. And you should be able to, if you're going to, trial, stand trial by a jury of your peers and let them decide your fate because they have to live with that on their conscience for the rest of their life. And, if you're found guilty, then you will have to serve the time for the crime that you committed, but it has to be fair and equal to the crime that you committed. That system needs to stay in place. And we need prisons in this world, especially today, because there are a lot more criminals than there have been in the past because the population's bigger. And that's just the way that it works. But also, too, you have a lot of people who commit, these crimes that are not citizens, and you need to handle that situation as well in the way that, ICE and people like that are doing. Well, what I'm talking about specifically today is people that are wrongfully incarcerated. There needs to definitely be a movement about this, and there already is, which we're going to talk about today. I'm hoping this video in some way helps to get just a little more views and people to become aware of this organization and the work that they're doing and some of the people that are, wrongfully convicted and the life that they have to live and them not having enough of a voice to be able to get out there to the public so that the public can fight on their behalf to, hopefully put pressure on the government to correct the corruption and the problems that we're having with the prison system. But we're going to take a look at a video in a minute, and it's going to be about a person that is wrongfully convicted, and they have enough evidence to prove that they are not the guilty party, at least their lawyers do. And the courts are not budging. They've been put on death row, and they are moving forward with their execution date. Now, they've been going back and forth about this for a very long time. And with all the evidence that came out, all of the new methods to discover evidence and to confirm things or deny things, forensic evidence especially, the government still wants to put this person to death. And this is just a level of corruption that I'm talking about, that it needs a bigger voice. I'm glad that there are a lot of great podcasts out there that shed light on a lot of topics that really are not talked about on the mainstream media. So it is a beautiful thing. And I know that podcasts are the future of, the media industry to a certain extent. But I definitely think there should be more podcasters and people who have a lot of influence that should touch on this topic because it is an important one. And there are many people that don't have a voice that are going through this that wish somebody would just be able to tell and share their story so that at least they're heard. Even if the outcome is not what they want it to be, at least they were heard so that others know this is wrong and we need to fix the system. So we're going to take a look at this video now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this organization, and then we're going to get into later on in the video just a little glimpse of the MLK files that were recently released from the Trump administration today, Monday, July 1st, just released hours ago, so fresh, brand new. And we're not going to be able to get into a lot because there's been like 230,000 files that were dumped, but we'll take a look at some of them just to get an idea, and I'll probably do a follow-up video about that. And then I'll try and touch on the Genius Act if I have the time. But let's take a look at this now. So this is the organization. They're called the Innocence Project, and they do a great, great job. They're the main organization, top one. There are many other lawyers that work on this, but they're the top organization in the United States that is fighting every day to defend and get released people who have been wrongfully convicted. That's their main objective. That's what they do as an organization. They have a lot of different chapters throughout the country, and they, if you believe in this, if this is something that you align with, and you think that people who are wrongfully convicted and the evidence is enough to get them, their case overturned and them freed, if you feel compelled to do something about this, you could donate to them. And I have no affiliation with them whatsoever other than, you know, private things where I support this organization. But, this podcast and me, myself, we are not an affiliate of this organization. That's all the more reason why I'm talking about it, because I'm not financially obligated to. I feel this is the right thing to support organizations like this. There's a lot of charities out there, and you never really can tell which ones are, genuine, and if the money that you give is going to the actual, thing that they claim they're fixing. But this organization has gotten many, many people out of prison, and their cases overturned and set them free. Some people after decades. I've seen people 40 plus years in prison, wrongfully convicted, that this organization helped overturn their case over a long period of time, of course. But they finally got the judges to approve it, and the person was freed, and they get to live out the remainder of their life, whatever amount of years that is, out here in the world and have a second chance at freedom. So if you feel compelled about this, if this is something that you feel strongly about, support their organization, because they need as much money as they can to fight against the government and the crooked, lawyers that are trying to keep these people in prison, and the judges too, because they just don't want to admit that they were wrong for convicting them in the first place. So this is a real situation that this individual is going through. This man is a real man. He's undergoing this right now. But it says stop the October 16th execution of Robert Robertson. So this is a real thing. This man has actually been on death row for a very long time, and he kept being able to postpone the execution date, but it is now set for October 16th of this year, 2025. So we'll read a little bit about it here. Robert faces execution despite new evidence that he is an innocent man wrongly convicted under the now debunked shaking baby syndrome. So this was a big thing when I was growing up, where parents were concerned that if you shook a baby too aggressively, you could give them an instant, something would go wrong with their body where they would have a seizure and then die. Essentially, that's what it was. And there were many people in the 90s, especially, I think, that were convicted and sent to prison for life for murdering their child, because it was discovered by whatever methods through the doctor and during the autopsy that they had shaken baby syndrome. And of course they will automatically blame the parents, because they're the ones that are with their child all the time, and that's typically who you go to blame when an infant dies, especially in their care. So this is a really twisted story, but we're going to take a look at this article, and then we're going to actually watch the video about it. Despite overwhelming evidence of his innocence, a Texas judge just scheduled Robert Robertson's execution for October 16th, 2025. Robert, a father with autism, so this is a man who has a disability himself, was sentenced to death in 2003, so that's over 20 years ago, for the tragic passing of his 2-year-old daughter, Nikki. At trial, prosecutors claimed she died from shaking baby syndrome, a theory that's since been widely discredited by the medical and scientific community. So, the lawyers made an argument and said this is what it was. Back then, that was the science. But now the science is saying that that's not the case. And the lawyers are still acting as though, this quote unquote evidence stands, even though it's not valid anymore. To date, no court has substantively reviewed the mountain of evidence proving that the tragic 2002 death of Robert's chronically ill toddler daughter resulted from illness, medical error, and accident, none of which was his fault. Last year, Robert came within hours of execution before a bipartisan group of Texas lawmakers stepped in to save his life. His case is still under review by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, yet the state is pushing forward with an execution anyway. If the execution goes forward, Robert will be the first person in U.S. history executed based on the debunked shaken baby syndrome, shaken baby theory. We still have time to stop this. Add your name now to demand Texas halt the execution of an innocent man. So you don't just have to be a Texas resident to do this. Anybody can do it. All you have to do is go to the website, innocenceproject.org. If you DM me, I'll send you the actual link. But you fill out this information right here to add your name to the list. And this is going to build a petition that if it gets enough signatures, it's going to put pressure on the courts to do something about this. After all of that, they keep trying to kill this man. I mean, think about how sick that is. But we're going to watch a video just to hear his take now.
This is death row, and this man doesn't have long to live. I haven't seen him in more than 20 years. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning to you, Brian. Brian or Mr. Wharton?
Brian's fine.
Oh, okay.
I am, let me just say, I am so sorry that you're here, and so sorry that you are still here.
Yes, sir.
It's our failure.
Yes, sir.
It truly is. But he's never been far from my mind. Why? Because I helped put him here, and he didn't deserve it. In 2002, I was the chief detective in the police department in Palestine, Texas. A 2-year-old girl was fighting for her life. Her name was Nikki. She had been brought to the hospital by her father, Robert Robertson.
Robertson told staff they were sleeping in their Palestine home when he woke up and saw Nikki unresponsive, having fallen off the bed.
When I got to the hospital, Robert wasn't showing any emotion. His daughter is dying, but he doesn't seem to care. The medical staff were talking to me about shaken baby syndrome. That's when an infant is killed or injured after being violently shaken. Nikki would die the following day. If she died of shaken baby syndrome, then there was only one person who could be responsible. So we arrested Robert. He was tried, convicted of murder, and sent to death row. That was 2 decades ago. Since then, I have left police work and entered the ministry, but I've never been able to forget Robert Robertson. This case has been a burden on my heart and my spirit. Let me just say that you have never been far from me, and I'm convinced we did the wrong thing.
I think if it would have been properly investigated more, we wouldn't be here sitting here now, probably,
Yeah.
But
no other possibilities for her injury were considered. I regret deeply that we followed the easiest path.
it was bad enough, me losing her, right?
Yes, sir.
I would do anything now to bring her back,
I would occasionally check this website to track his status. When I'd see his name, I'm thinking to myself, good. Somebody's still working with him through the appeals process. An appeal has got to straighten this out, find the truth. I tried to move on. I would comfort myself and say, look, the system did what the system does. He's got an attorney. He got his Miranda warnings. We went by the book. He's where he's supposed to be. But several years ago, someone appeared at my door. It was Robert's attorney. And I told her, I've been expecting you. Sadly, I guess it took her appearing at my front door for me to find my voice again. I now understand that Robert did, in fact, have autism.
It's hard for me to express myself in certain things and stuff. I had lots of things I was going to talk to you about, but sometimes you get wordless, wordless and stuff,
I understand. Yeah. Autism would explain Robert's flat affect and lack of emotion in the hospital. It's absolutely insane that this never came up in his trial. I've now come to understand that Nikki was a very sick child, and that some of those medical issues could have very easily played into the injuries that ultimately killed her. And shaken baby syndrome, it's been substantially discredited by many in the medical community. Not only is there reasonable doubt that Robert did do it, there is unassailable doubt that Robert did do it. But for us at the time, we really felt like we were doing the right thing.
Yes, sir.
What do you want to say to me? Me and the folks that helped put you here.
I would like to let y'all know I forgive y'all and stuff. Forgive y'all and stuff. Just hope and pray that we can make things right together.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I appreciate your forgiveness. It means a lot to me. We as human beings are incapable of producing the kind of fairness and justice required to take someone's life. We can't do it. And since we can't do it every time in the same way, justly and fairly, then we don't need to be doing it at all. In the United States, and certainly in the great state of Texas, we need to abolish the death penalty.
And thank you, Brian.
I'm praying for you, brother.
I'm praying for you too, brother.
Humans are too fallible to do this fairly. We make mistakes. I made a big mistake. It's a weight I will carry for the rest of my life.
So there you have it. That was his testimony, and it was so important to see that investigator do the right thing, come back in the future and admit wrongdoing and explain, hey, listen, this was what we were going by at that time because this is what we knew. This was the evidence we had. But if you notice, the entire case was hinged on this theory of shaken baby syndrome, which is no longer relevant and has been disproven. So it's bad science. And then on top of that, the other thing was this investigator's gut instinct that this man had something sinister about him because he was emotionless about his daughter on the brink of death in that moment. And so for that reason, he felt that that guy committed the crime because he didn't feel anything about his daughter dying. So he must be the guilty party that's trying to kill her or tried to kill her because he wants her dead. It was all BS. It was all made up in his mind. And he didn't realize until years later, like he said, that he was told by the lawyer, this man had autism. So back in these early 2000s, autism wasn't viewed the way it is today, where there's an understanding about it and there's a lot more awareness about it and people who have it and, understanding that they have different social situations than the average person. And at that time, he just thought that guy must be, sociopath or psychopath or something, and he probably killed his kid. So those two things they were basing that entire case on. And it was enough at that time to convict this man and send him to prison for over 20 years now. And even with all this new evidence coming out, they're still trying to kill him. It's insane. So America, this is one of the darkest things about America, that if we don't change our ways in this area and a couple of other areas that I've said in the past, but specifically for this video, we're talking about this now. If we don't change our ways with this is going to curse this nation. You can't throw innocent people in jail. And when you find out that they're innocent, even if you had bad information and you were going on that originally, you have to set them free. Otherwise, we are involved in corruption and evil, and that will take a hold on our nation. So we have to change that about ourselves. Now, this video probably won't get as many views as, many podcasts out there because it's just a new channel. We're still growing. I just hope that this gets out to enough people that they, share it and spread the message and, maybe let other podcasts know that have bigger audiences to get this information out there. Because it's not about me and my channel. It's about, getting the information out there to as many people as possible and creating enough of movement that, we could put pressure on the politicians to do something about this and change this, because this is an ugly side of America that has to be changed. But if you ever have a chance and you want to learn more about it, obviously take a look at the Innocence Project, their website and everything. But if you want to see a great documentary, there's a documentary which I'll pull up now. So there's this documentary called The Innocence Files. I think it originally aired on Netflix, and it talks all about this organization, the Innocence Project, and it goes into some of the cases of people that were wrongfully convicted and how many years and decades even that they've spent in prison, and this whole time they were innocent, and the life that got robbed from them, and just so much. It's an excellent documentary, one of the best I've seen in a while. So if you ever get a chance to watch this, it might be on Netflix still, so take a look at it there. If not, you can probably find it on one of the other apps. And if you want to learn more about the organization, check out the Innocence Project. But the documentary is a great way to really get to see, in an artistic way, what these people go through, including the lawyers and the amount of time that they spend on these cases and the emotional relationships that they build with, the people in prison. And when they, it's sad, but even when they get to a point where a person they lose and they end up, you know, executing them anyway, that lawyer now has to live the rest of their life knowing that person was innocent and was wrongfully executed. That is traumatizing. Not to mention for the person's family too, to have to go through that and to fight for years to try and get this person out of prison just to be told no because they don't want to admit they're wrong and they kill this person anyway. I mean, that you have to be a really sick person to do that. And this is the thing. The judges are making these decisions about innocent people while pointing the finger at the criminals behind prison walls, claiming that they're the moral authority because they're sitting in the judge's seat with the gavel and the robe, acting like they're in a authority figure that is delivering justice on bad people. Meanwhile, at in the same way, in the same breath, these judges are finding out that these people are innocent and with new evidence that is undisputed, and the politicians as well, the lawyers, the prosecutors, and they're all knowingly and willingly going through with executing these people, even though they know they're innocent, and even though they are claiming to stand on like this moral high ground and say that they're qualified to be in this position where they get to dictate right from wrong, guilty from innocent, and then make sure those people suffer the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, these people are operating worse than these criminals a lot of times because the criminals are in prison for either petty crimes or some of these people are innocent. But the judges, the lawyers, the people involved that are going through with this, they now have murder on their hands. And they might not see it that way because the judicial system won't come after them for that. But this is true. God sees them as a murderer. And when their time comes, they will be judged for that. And they will have to pay the same, actually worse, consequence from the very murderers and quote unquote murderers, because some of them are innocent, that they made sure they put behind bars. When they face their maker, they're going to have to answer to the real judge for the crimes they committed. If you're a judge out there, a lawyer, or somebody involved in this stuff, don't just look at your job like, you know, it's a scorecard. How many cases can you get closed in your favor and win and get the big paychecks and stuff? The decisions you make in this life will absolutely affect you in the next. Take it seriously. If you know somebody's innocent or there's a shroud of evidence that they could be, you have to let them go. Because the whole thing about the judicial system in this country and being backed up by the Constitution and our rights is you have to be convicted beyond reasonable doubt that you are absolutely guilty and there's no evidence you're innocent. And the problem in this country is it's not that way anymore. They just find one or two things to claim that you're guilty and it's enough. But that's not how it actually works. You're innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. So if there's one or two pieces of evidence that can link you to a crime, but it's not conclusive, you are supposed to be innocent and you are supposed to be left alone, set free. And if they get more evidence on you, that's a different story. But yeah, now this is a huge problem in America, and it would be nice if the Trump administration did something about it, because it's definitely a top 3 to 5 issue that we're struggling with in this nation. Definitely talked about a lot less than some other issues, but it's a big one. And it is going to really negatively impact America going forward if it continues to get worse the way that it's going. So if you care about this, take a look at the organization and take a look at the documentary if you like documentaries. And if you feel inclined, donate to them. None of it goes to me. I have no affiliation with them. So, this is just if you believe in this. But all right, so the last thing we're going to do is jump into the recently released MLK files, because they were just released today. And I wanted to talk about this briefly just because it's new, it's fresh, and it is technically breaking news. We're not going to have time to get into this today, really, because I'm going to have to do more research and take a look at these files. So I'll do a follow-up video, and in that video, too, I'll probably also mention what's going on with the Genius Act, but just to touch on that briefly so we can talk about it this episode. Basically, they passed the Genius Act, which is all about stable coins, and basically those are going to be backed by the United States dollar, the government, the Treasury Department, and U.S. Treasuries. So it's going to have a huge impact on the crypto industry with making stablecoins a reality as part of our financial system going forward. Now, there's a lot of people that are concerned that this is going to, ruin the traditional financial industry, and maybe they're right. It might change it and have a huge impact on it, and maybe it will affect some businesses that are not keeping up with the technology. Maybe they'll be phased out of the industry and we'll move on from them. And naturally, that happens anytime you introduce something new, more cutting edge or technological advancement. But I actually see this as a positive to the banking industry, the traditional finance industry, because all you're doing is offering another product. You see, when you have a business, you have two things, either a product or a service. That's it. There's nothing else. Everybody offers either one of those two things. And the goal of a business is to either expand their client base, their territory, or their product line. Those are pretty much the only three ways that you grow your business. But many people don't look at it like this because it's banking, so it looks a little different. All forms of currency are the bank's products. And that comes in many different ways. It could be, US dollars, it could be other forms of foreign currency, it could be the types of products that they offer that are related to currency, like CDs, checking accounts, savings accounts, even loans that they give out. Debt is also a form of, currency in a way. So there is, at the least, it's a product. So all they're doing is expanding their product line by now introducing stable coins into the mix and then cooperating that with the traditional financial system and the banking industry. All this is really going to do is streamline payment processing. It's going to make banking change for the better going forward. And it's probably going to make banking look a lot more like the crypto exchanges, where it's 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365. You can move your money around any time of day. When you could be 1 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day, and you could still move your money around. You could do trades. You could do all kinds of things. Cash out. You know, have access to spend the money instantaneously. And so many other things that come with that. The traditional banking industry has still been lacking in that area, and that's where this is a good thing, and it's going to benefit them because they need help with that. Banking is still very old school compared to most businesses today. It's like a 9 to 5 operation. Many times they close at 4 and not really open on the weekends, maybe Saturday for a few hours. But there are so many gaps in, um, time that people can access their money or the products that the bank has to offer because they operate on very strict hours. And people in the finance industry just want to work those nice, cushy hours because their job is, either a cushy job or it's a difficult job because it's very like, you know, you're in your headspace a lot. It's numbers, it's math, and they just don't want to, work past a comfortable American schedule. But that's just not a reality a lot of the time, and it's not the way the world works today. You know, we, especially in America, we do business with all different types of countries across the world. They have different time zones. They're operating at different hours than we are. You have to be able to keep up. And on top of that, even in America, people want to be able to access their money and access those products any time of day because there are people who work at 1 o'clock in the morning on their laptop because, that's when they're able to get the work done because they're busy the rest of their day. Or, that's just when they choose to work because that's the schedule they like. So if they want to run their business that way, especially with a lot of people who work remote now, they're tailoring their jobs to work around their remote lifestyle, and they would like to be able to continue to work and not have to put things off until normal business hours. So that's a huge positive that I see that's going to come from this. Is it's probably going to help change the banking industry's hours of operation, the way that they do things, how streamlined things are, how much quicker things get processed rather than, you know, 3 to 5 business days, lag time, all this stuff. So it's going to have a positive effect on the industry as a whole. And I think it's going to actually benefit the financial industry a lot more than it's going to hurt it. Yeah, some things might change, things might get downsized or, consolidated, but it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be explosive. And also, I think it might have a positive effect on the securities industry as well. Even though a lot of these are not securities, it will help change a lot of the trading platforms for traditional securities where maybe they operate more in line with the crypto exchanges operations and how fast they process payments and things like that, transactions. But, that's a huge part of it. Not to mention, this stuff is going to be considered a lot more tangible and secure because it's backed by the United States dollar now, and the US Treasury is going to back it as well, which is going to also help the economy because more people will buy treasury bills and so many other things that go into that. And it's just going to boost the economy overall. So it will even affect people that have no crypto holdings whatsoever, no affiliation to that stuff. There will be a ripple effect that benefits the economy and benefits those people as well. So I see this as being a really good thing. Yeah, there's probably going to be some downside. There's downside with everything. Everything you do, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. To think that there's a way to do things perfectly where, we only get the good and none of the bad is just not the reality of life. We live in the world, and the world is a place where there's good and evil. So you just have to deal with that, and that's the way it is. But that's all I'm going to say on that. Maybe down the road, I'll do some more videos on crypto because I know that that's a big talking point today, and there's a lot of people into that. And I'm not a crypto guru. I just know enough about it for, finance and business purposes. Maybe in the future, I'll do more videos on that just to open up to that audience, people who care about that stuff, and talk a little bit more about it from a well-rounded view that encompasses many different things, not just isolated tunnel vision on crypto. So we'll see how that goes in the future. But the last thing I want to get into is this. This is the letter from Tulsi Gabbard talking about the files that she's releasing for the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination. So this was just today, as you can see here, for immediate release, July 1st, 2025. DNI, that's her title now. Tulsi Gabbard, in partnership with the DOJ, the FBI, CIA, NARA, released the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination files. Again, today's date, Director of National Intelligence, that's what DNI stands for, released over 230,000 pages of documents. So now you see why we really can't get into this today. I'm going to have to go through this for a little while and maybe do a follow-up video down the road. But I doubt anybody's going to be able to get through these today since it's been released, and other people, they're going to be talking about this too, but I doubt they're going to be able to go through it and, post anything for at least a few days. Anything of substance, at least. But related to the assassination of MLK, in accordance with President Donald Trump, Executive Order 14176, the unprecedented release follows through on President Trump's commitment to fully release previously classified records relating to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy and RFK, MLK was carried out in coordination with the Department of Justice. Okay, so this is just basically them talking about what this release entails. The documents include details about the FBI's investigation into the assassination, including the discussion of potential leads, internal FBI memos detailing the progress of the case, the documents related to James Earl Ray, former cellmate, who stated he discussed with Ray an alleged assassination plot. Additionally, as James Earl Ray fled the country following the assassination, the release includes unique foreign evidence from a Canadian police department, never before seen CIA records, outline overseas intelligence on the international hunt for the prime suspect in the assassination. All right, that's her little I'm grateful to the president. The American people waited nearly 60 years. The American people deserve answers and all that stuff. So it's pretty much just a letter explaining that they're releasing the files. If you want to know where this letter is, it's on dni.gov and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. So that's Tulsi Gabbard. Now, my opinion is that they probably push to release these because these are not as detrimental to society as the Jeffrey Epstein files. So because of all the heat going on, Trump probably felt we have to throw the public something. So it's got to be something that they've been asking for a while that, is substantial and is going to be, maybe not shocking, but maybe gives more clarity to the situation and gives the people some relief. So I personally think he chose to push this out, him and Tulsi Gabbard, to give the American people something to sink their teeth into, since all of this Jeffrey Epstein stuff has been kind of blowing up in their face, and the public is really upset with Trump, including his voter base, because of not releasing the Epstein files, which, like I said, I gave my opinion on that in previous videos. Check those videos out if you haven't yet. Part 1 and Part 2 about the cover-up, just released within the last week or two. But this is the National Archives website, and these are the records related to the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So these are where the files are. Again, anytime you want files, you want links to anything that we talked about on the show, put it in the comments or direct message me, and I will send you the link, because I want people to be able to do their own research and take a look at this themselves. But these are the actual files. If you scroll down, this is the official National Archives page 2 through the government, so this is legitimate. And if you scroll down, here are the links to the files right down here. June 1968, what we learned from RE. It's not going to give the whole thing, just name the files. Titled Approve Pass, September 17th, April 17th, 1968, deleted, asked. American activities, chronology of the Washington, I guess something. Resistance information, situation information. Okay, so these are a bunch of files. I'm just going to click on one just to show you what the files look like. Many of them are very old and they're not really legible. You can't really read them. And also, they are heavily redacted in many cases. So it's going to be a while before the public really, goes through these and has an understanding of what's in them, putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. And to be honest, most people won't do that due diligence. I can't even say that I'm going to either, to some extent. Most people will just get the cliff notes from the media, find out what the juicy dirt is, and move on with their lives, because a lot of this stuff is so long ago. Don't forget 1968. I mean, we're talking over half a century ago. Most people today, their parents weren't even alive when, not most people, but many like Gen Z generation and some millennials, their parents weren't even alive when this happened. So, and if they were little kids. So, this is really not too relevant to today. It's just people are so sick of the government lying to them and covering up all these conspiracies and maybe even being involved in these crimes, which is control and manipulation of the American people, which is, not constitutional. That is treason. But yeah, I think it's just to a point where the people just want to know the truth about everything. Just put it all out there. Let us decide for ourselves, you know, but it is, and that's it. So these are the files. This is just what one looks like. Chronology of the Washington Spring Project. So that's what that said. And we're just going to zoom in a little bit. It's hard to read this old typewriter print, especially with all these lights in my eyes. Sometimes I have to zoom in pretty big. On August 15th, 1967, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. first announced a massive campaign of civil disobedience in Washington, D.C. and other major U.S. urban areas. The plan was reiterated by Dr. King on the 23rd of October, 1967, and also at the conference with newsmen following his testimony before an executive session of the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorder. Okay, so this is just like Washington to force Congress to enact a $20 billion a year anti-poverty program, which eventually they pretty much did for the next 10 years. King mentioned the program following a week-long conference, so Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Okay, so this is one of the files, and it even has right at the top there, approved for release 2025 under Executive Order 14176, which is Trump's executive order. If you look here, this one in particular happens to be a 7-page document, which is good. That one's pretty short. I'll just read the last paragraph. At present, there is not enough statistical information available to make a valid estimate of the number of participants or the impact this demonstration may have on Washington, D.C. There's little doubt, however, that the district law enforcement authorities will be unable to cope with any situation that reaches the proportions of the 21 to 22 October 1967 Pentagon demonstrations. During those demonstrations, the city deputized members of the National Guard, but even this proved inadequate because the National Guard in the District of Columbia has only approximately 1,800 members. This created the necessity for federal assistance. So that's that one document right there. Well, there you have it. That's pretty much it for this video. This is the archives page, archives.gov. If you want to find those files, you could even just do a simple search online, and I'm sure it'll take you right to the website. But it's archives.gov. It's an official government website, and they release the files and publish them on there. So you can view them anytime you want, or like I said, reach out to me and I'll send you the link. But yeah, take a look at that, read it, see how you feel, and put it in the comments. If you discover anything too from going through the files, you discover anything interesting, feel free to share it. Feel free to share it with the audience. Put it in the comment section. Let's talk about it. Let's have a dialogue. Maybe everybody, finds something different that they came across, and we could all have a conversation about it. So put that in the comments. Put in the comments anything that you want to see for future episodes, any topics, and also any guests you'd like to see me have. I'm definitely going to start doing guests this year. We're working actively towards that. So if there's anybody in particular you think would be a good fit for the channel, let me know. You could put it in the comments, or you could DM me personally, and I'll see if they're a fit for the show, for the channel. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share all that good stuff. Keeps the channel growing, and we have a lot of big plans for the future, so stick around. Don't worry, the equipment will definitely get better over time. It's all a work in progress, and the videos will get a lot clearer. Lighting and camera quality will definitely improve over time. We're working on that little by little, but the channel has to continue to grow for us to get there. So don't be afraid to share the videos, especially the full episodes. But that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son. And it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. You know, we highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, you know, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, you know, buy a children's book as a gift. You know, definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, you know, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, you know, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throw in your own, you know, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, you know, put on a better party. You know, health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop, and these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, you know, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, you know, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodsoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag and it says free and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, you know, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms: Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post, and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future, and I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.